You can have the best written book in the world, but if the right people never hear about it, it won't go anywhere. So in this episode of Your Path to Publish, we're diving into the most overlooked part of book publicity. No, it's not your press release and it's not your social media content. It's not the launch event. It's not the podcast appearance you have. It's this, knowing exactly who your reader is before you try to reach them. Stick around because I'm going to walk you through why audience clarity is the linchpin of any successful publicity campaign and how to actually get clear even if you're just getting started. This is Your Path to Publish. I'm your host, Zach Christensen. For the past decade, our team has guided authors just like you to find the best path to publish your book, get people excited to buy it even before it launches, and to turn it into the ultimate business card to build your business and your legacy. If you are ready to get your book out of your head and into people's hands, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. So let's be honest, and this is true of many authors that I work with, and honestly, as I'm getting my book going, there's something incredibly appealing about getting your book featured in Forbes magazine, Fast Company, some other niche magazine, or get an interview on local media or the Today Show, or get on that one podcast that would be just game-changing for your book. Well, let's take a step back because many authors might think if I could just get into the right media outlet, everything would take off. So what typically happens? You jump straight into PR mode, you hire a publicist, you start drafting press releases, you're making media lists, and before you've done the most important foundational step, getting clear on who you're actually trying to reach. Now, you may have done this in your book, but you got to make sure that it translates over into your PR and marketing. So it's not that big media exposure doesn't work. It can, even though it's getting a little bit less effective than it used to. But it only works if the message is right and if it connects with the right readers. Because PR without reader clarity, it's noise, it's expensive, it's a waste of time, and it typically will fall flat. That's why in this episode, we're going to talk about your audience, because the most overlooked part of book publicity isn't your press strategy, it's understanding your readers on a deep enough level that your campaign resonates. I have an author I've worked with who's able to get on local media quite frequently for where they live. And sometimes it's more effective, sometimes it's less effective. And I think the times where it's less effective or we don't see any ROI for the hour or two that they spent there is because it's not to the right audience. The topic they brought in is not resonating with the audience who's watching that show or segment on the news or the local media. Now, it's not a complete waste of time in the sense that they're able to now take that logo and say that they were on this media outlet, and that's extremely valuable and helpful for building their brand. The key is really helping to break down who is it you're targeting. So we want to look at who your reader is, what they care about, and where they're already hanging out. So here's a simple framework that you can use and that I teach to authors to define their audience. First is demographics. This is thinking about the basics of age, gender, income, location, education, and your profession of your ideal reader. So for example, if you wrote a book on productivity for mid-career professionals, your target audience might be a 35 to 50-year-old person in a managerial role. They have a college education to some extent, and they feel very overwhelmed by their new role, but they are very ambitious and are doing what they can to make the most of it. The next is psychographics, and honestly, this is where the real magic happens because you're starting to look at what are their values, what are they really struggling with, what is their day-to-day experience like, and what would they get from a book like yours? And by thinking about that, you then learn what kind of language they are using. Psychographics tell you the emotional and motivational triggers that would get someone to say, that book is for me. And then finally, the preferred channels or where they're hanging out. So basically, where do they get their information to solve this challenge or problem that they're experiencing? Do they get on podcasts, LinkedIn, Instagram, different newsletters? Are they on Book Talk? Whatever it might be, you need to know this, because if you're pitching to be on a podcast, but your readers are really scrolling through TikTok or Instagram, you've missed the mark. Now, what you can do if that was the case is then you just take clips from that podcast and you put it on those platforms. Now, once you understand your audience, it starts to get easier. Your media list becomes more targeted, so you know what podcasts or outlets your readers really will trust and most likely be on and listen to. Your messaging gets more specific, and this is huge. You stop trying to sound smart and you start connecting emotionally. You use their words and their language to really connect to them. And then your narrative becomes more personal. You tell a story that matters to people that you're trying to reach. That's when you start getting media and people listening to it to say yes, and where you're really leaning in. And that's where your book begins to spread. Now, as a side note, if you didn't know already, publicity and PR is a long-term play. You're not going to sell thousands of books through this per se. From what I've seen and experienced, PR and publicity does not generate thousands of copies in book sales. So for today, if you're not 100% sure who your audience is, try these 3 things. Look at 3 comp titles and read their reviews. You can do this on Amazon as well as Goodreads. Look at the themes, the frustrations, what the readers liked, what they don't like. And then you can even take this and summarize it and notice what language they're using. Next, talk to 3 people who represent your ideal reader. Ask them, what drew you to books like this? What would make you share one? What was missing from that book? And then with the power of AI, you can use that to analyze patterns in audience language, tone, and platform behavior. It's really a huge time saver. So bringing this all back together, if your book isn't connecting, it may not be a publicity tactic problem. It may be an audience clarity problem. So here's your challenge for the week. Write a 1-paragraph profile of your ideal reader. Get as specific as possible. Then ask yourself, is my current publicity plan aimed at this person? If not, it's time to reassess. If you already have a PR person, get with them, share your ideas, get that clarity, and work together to create a killer plan that will resonate with your target audience. Thank you for tuning in today. And if you found this episode helpful, share it with a fellow author, leave a review. It helps more than you know. If you're ready to build a smart, aligned book publicity strategy that actually works, head over to juxtabook.com and join the Author Edge community or set up a free consultation. We have great PR agents that we recommend, and we can also brainstorm with you about getting to your ideal and target audience. Until next time, keep writing, keep connecting, and remember, the right message to the right person always wins.